Okay, I guess we're at time. Good morning. Welcome to the OPENPGP session at this IETF on Friday. And my name is Stephen Farrell. My co-chair DKG is gigantically on screen over here. And so somebody was closing the door. Thank you. And DKG, there's about 20 people in the room despite the camera view you might have. So it looks like there's nobody. So it's Friday, but you probably have to look at the note well one more time at least, or maybe two. So again, note well, this is how we do things. You need to read all that stuff. If you're in person, please do have signed in, use the join the queue thing. And equally, remote people, if you want to join the queue and then send audio and video, but otherwise keep those turned off. The IETF Code of Conduct says that we'll all behave nicely and so on, and do that, it'd be good. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. So we have some working group documents that we will go through relatively quickly. We have a bunch of presentations about other drafts, and we have one AOB item. I think it was Daniel on the list asked, what are we going to do next? So we won't necessarily decide that today, but we might just open a little discussion about it. So does anybody have any agenda bashing that they want to do? Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, besides what's next, I thought maybe we can discuss a little bit about persistence metric keys. I don't know if you foresaw that as part of the JOS.
So I didn't catch the last. You said besides what's next, and then the audio didn't come through very well.
Yeah, I thought maybe we can also discuss a little bit about how to move forward with persistence metric keys, even though you have it listed under the working group document. I don't know if you wanted to get into the details of that, or
that's on the agenda here.
It's on the. I think there's a slide on it as well.
Okay, good.
Okay. Otherwise, the agenda is bashed. DKG, do you want to do the next couple of bits?
Sure. Can you guys hear me? I understand that I was a little too quiet earlier.
It's still not hugely audible.
Okay. I am moving my audio back up, but I think that Meet Echo is moving it back down. So feel free to tell me when I've got too quiet, and I'll go nudge the slider.
Yeah. We lost you when you said, feel free to tell me I'm blah, blah, blah.
I said, feel free to tell me when I've gotten too quiet and I can go nudge the slider. Meet Echo appears to be moving the volume level back down. I don't know why.
Okay, so probably remote people can hear you perfectly.
Yes, we can hear you perfectly remotely.
Okay.
I'll be a little bit shouty. Sorry about that, remote people. Is this better? Because I can't keep readjusting the slider and talking at the same time. And I don't know how to get it to not adjust itself. Anyway, post-quantum cryptography. We seem to be in good shape. We've hit the publication requested button. It is now in the hands of the rest of the IETF process. We have, it looks like 5 interoperable implementations, which is pretty great. Next slide, Stephen. It's more on PQC. There are a few gaps. In particular, it looks like we have one implementation that doesn't manage to encrypt to a v4 key. Maybe it hasn't made that change yet. That's a relatively recent change, permitting the use of this as a subkey for a v4 primary. The other implementations seem to be okay with that. And it does decrypt, at least. All the implementations do decrypt in that scenario. For the some of the non-required post-quantum suites, not every implementation supports all of them. We have some that don't support SLH-DSA, and one implementation that doesn't support the stronger of the MLChem ED448 pair. So that's where we are with PQC. We will be, as chairs, nudging. Sorry, I see this discussion over on the sidebar about whether you can hear me or not. So if the automatic gain control is kicking in on my side, which is where I see the slider going back down, that doesn't explain why remote people can hear me well. So
the automatic transcript is actually doing very well, so people can watch that as well as try listen. So
I don't know if anybody else has anything that they want to say about PQC. The next slide moves on from PQC.
Okay, if anybody has other things to say about PQC, I guess jump in the queue.
But as chairs, we will be nudging the rest of the process. Aaron.
I actually just wanted to extend a big thank you to the working group for making the draft go so smoothly through the whole process, for the reviews that you've provided, for the implementations, and for making sure that we got here to the IETF process. Thank you.
And thanks for doing the work.
Yes, thank you to the authors for that, being very responsive and thoughtful as issues came up. And hopefully we'll continue to be responsive as other things will come up inevitably. Replacement key draft. So this draft is looking fairly stable. We don't have a clear way to test interoperability. There's been some discussion about most of our interoperability tests are based on the OpenPGP, the stateless OpenPGP interface, which does not explicitly have a mechanism for offering this. There's been discussion on issue 99, but no conclusion about how to test it. I have an idea about how to test it, which I have not written up. I will try to do that. I don't know if anybody else has suggestions there. But if we're going to put it in the working group last call, which seems like the next state here, we'd need to know who is volunteering to give a full review and who is implementing, or who has implemented. So does anybody want to speak in the room to these questions about volunteering to review or implement?
So if you're willing to volunteer to review or intending to implement, now would be a great time to either jump in the queue or say so in the chat.
Yeah, if we have no one who's willing to review, that's going to be a problem.
Daniel?
Hi, yeah, I'm willing to review the document. I'm also willing to help think about the SOP question, and I can try to propose some text there if that's useful.
Thank you. Without my chair hat on, in terms of working with SOP, my proposal was going to be to add a profile argument to SOP update key. And if the profile that's supplied does not match the certificate that's present, to the extent that it needs an entirely new primary key, then we could encourage people to use replacement key in that case, and then manually inspect the outcome to see whether there are two certificates there or not. That's my thought. I don't really like the manual inspection part because I'd like to be able to review it with SOP, but we can see. If other people have other ideas, please weigh in on SOP 99 there. Aaron.
I'm also willing to have a look at the draft. I think it's, I would be very happy to have this published, and I think it's a good work.
Great. Do we think that we are ready for the working group last call on this? Stephen, do you have any organizational thoughts on working group last call? It seems to be stable.
David, yeah, I think it would be nice to get some more reviews. Okay, we have arm waving to say yes, I will. So, okay, if we can get a couple of more reviews of it, I think then, and it's stable, it seems to be something to do a working group last call on soon.
All right, I guess we will take to the list whether we start the working group last call. Next slide.
Maybe
Oh,
just worth checking. I mean, how many people have read this draft? One hand, half up. Two. Yeah. Okay. So let's let's get if we can get a couple of reviews and then do working group last call. That seems like a reasonable thing.
okay. By the way, do we have a note taker?
We have multiple note takers, 3
Excellent.
at least.
Thank you for sorting that out.
Okay.
Right, so the other draft that we have adopted right now is the persistent symmetric keys draft. This is what Daniel raised during the agenda bashing. There's an open question about how to test this as well. You can see that on the SOP number 110 issue. We have a sort of cheating 132 merge request that was merged into the interoperable test suite. But it doesn't really align with what SOP says you're supposed to do, in that it allows you to pass in a secret key where you should be passing in asserts for doing encryption and signature verification. So we don't really know exactly how to test this. We have this sort of fake thing merged in, but we need more eyeballs on that too. Do we have folks who are interested in reviewing or implementing? This doesn't feel quite as far along to me as the replacement keys, but yeah. How do folks in the working group feel about this?
So again, let's start out with how many people have read a recent version of this? Instead of 1.5 hands, we have 1. So yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah. I mean, in the room present we had 1. And we have, okay, Justice also. Okay, so I guess it's the same plan, but maybe a little bit later than the replacement keys, I guess. Daniel?
Yeah, so I agree. It's a bit less far along, and I also sent an email to the list, even like still discussing like the architecture of how this should work. I don't know why my video is not working now, but anyway, so I even so maybe we even still need to have some discussion about that. I'm not sure, yeah, if there's time for that here, but I'm not sure what's the best way to move forward, if we need to keep it as the draft says now, or if we need to make major changes. If so, that might also impact how to test it and other things, right? If people are happy enough with the current draft, then we can keep it as is and move forward with that. But I'm also not quite sure whether that's the case.
So if we have time at the end, I'm happy to do a deeper dive into what you think the issues are here. But I hope if you can, sorry, if you wrote that recently to the list, like in the last day or two, I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, it was some days ago, but yeah, no worries.
Okay. Sounds like something that we need to encourage discussion on list.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, so there's just for the note takers, the chair should poke people to do reviews of these two, and then we'll go ahead. Okay, so then we're not there yet, but we will get there. So have a little think about what next for the AOB slot.
And then our other presentations are from folks who wanted to talk about drafts that are not currently adopted. So we're going to start with a discussion of the proposal for post-quantum crypto with NIST and Brainpool from Falco. Falco, are you here?
Oh, you're doing it, okay?
Oops, sorry about that. I thought Falco was presenting it. I misunderstood.
Is that it? That's the right one?
Yes.
Okay. Would you like the slides clicker?
Could you do that for me, or I should do it?
You can try.
Okay.
I can take over if you want.
Okay, just like this.
So you pointed this direction.
This direction?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm one of the co-authors of this draft. First of all, from my view, I'm fine with both options, either the standalone PQC algorithms or the hybrid ones. But the one things I had noticed was that a lot of people in our working group really wanted to use hybrid options. And also there is one fact that there are a lot of implementations of the NIST curves. It's extremely widely deployed everywhere. And in a lot of those use cases, people didn't have a need for X22519, and they're happy with their good implementation of P256 or P384. And a lot of them, among them, a lot of them might want to use hybrids instead of the standalone PQC. So this is an effort for the working group, the opportunity for the working group to help those people and to add recommendation or advice in the draft if the group decided to adopt it. And I really strong supported the working group for doing that. Similarly with the brain pool curves, and I believe they are also widely deployed. So that is the reason why we had them both in this draft, to reduce the amount of work from two different drafts. Next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, here's the outline of what we have in the drafts. We use MLChem with ECDH and MLDC with ECDC for both the NIST and brain pool curves. So it's relevant in the US, and so I believe that, as I've been told, a lot of places in Europe or in Germany, hybrids are either required or strongly recommended. So that's why they are here, try to support those. And these options, they were originally in the our working group draft, which just almost finished, but we decided to split it into different documents. And here is the second part. Go and follow that, the one we had almost completed. And thank you to all the people who worked on that draft. And I think it went very smoothly, and it was very, very well written, and I really liked it. So here is what we have. We have three options with the NIST curves, and we have two options with the brain pool curves. And similarly, we have for chem and for signatures, and they're all listed here. And the security bit numbers are just the classical strengths. For the post-quantum, very closely related to that, but not way different from that. Yeah, and also the curves format encoding for the curves are different from the X2519 and X448. The chem combiner, we decided to go with the construction from the LAMPS and one of the CFIG proposal. Yeah, security is good. It's has in the line with what we already have in our main draft, our main documents. It's almost finished documents. Yep, and all the steps are identical in those with the one in the main draft, main documents. And here are some links to the resources about this draft that we can have further information. In nutshell, I think this would be a good document for the NIST, for the working group to adopt, to work on. and because that would help a lot of people who prefer hybrid to use hybrid with the current curves that they're happy with and they want to use instead of go to the standalone PQC. Yep. So I'm added here, and I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments that you have on this draft.
So, okay, Daniel.
Yes, thanks for the presentation. I will be the mean guy and say my usual comment, which is like, I mean, so I've heard that I hear you say that there are many implementations of the NIST curves, which is of course obviously true, and people would like to use that, which is understandable. But I think the bar for adopting this should be that people cannot use, or I mean, have some reason not to use the options that we have standardized, like the combinations with the CFRG curves. So do you think that like using MLChem plus X25519, for example, somehow presents a challenge for OpenPGP deployments to use, or is it more like a preference to use the NIST curves?
I think there are places where X2519 is not available and people don't have intention to implement X2519. Why they don't have the P256? It's been there longer, and they might have very good implementation. So they had no reason to add more cost into the system.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not saying I don't see anything bad about MLChem with X2519, but that's not all the people are having.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think for OpenPGP implementations, it's relatively well supported, X25519. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I can understand.
Okay, Stavros.
So, hi, good morning. Stavros Kouzias from the BSI. Well, for us, it would be a challenge to deploy the base draft because we need the brainpool curves to adhere to our policies, and at least in the German public administration where we use OpenPGP. Okay, that's it. Thanks.
Sorry, who's next in the line?
Aaron. So I think what's the problem if you support if you would support the standalone algorithms? What's the problem with having an additional X25519 payload in there? Like, I do understand the problem for Stavros that requires the composite with brainpool, but if you accept the standalone, what makes it worse?
Yeah, as I said, there are people who prefer standalone PQC. There are people who prefer hybrid, and those people, a lot of places they have the NIST curves available and been hardened over the years, and they want to use that with hybrid. And this is a way we would support them. And if we adopted this, we could add recommendation or guidelines for those users.
Okay, so there is a need for also hybrid NIST curves. That's what you're saying?
Yes,
okay,
I think there's a need for that.
And at this point, the question is, we have 2 of the brainpool curves in the draft, but we have 3 of NIST curves. Wouldn't it be possible already to do 2 and 2, or is there a need for all 3 variants?
Yeah, from my personal perspective, the 3 options are good. However, if it became a group document, then the group had the right to give advice, remove or add stuff to that. and that could be very helpful to the user as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so it would be up to the group to decide, what to add, what to remove, and what guidance the group wanted to give. So this is a good opportunity for the group to do great service to those users.
Yeah, Alicia Cario, Red Hat. So the situation is regulatory compliance, and having NIST curves would be helpful in that, like, P384 has been CNSA 1.0 part of it, and some customers are really like it. On the other hand, there hasn't been that much interest in ED 25519 for signatures. So like when we are doing RPM signatures, it would be nicer to be able to do MLDSA 87 for CNSA 2.0 compliance with P384 for CNSA 1.0 compliance. So yeah, I think there is a place for this draft, at least some of the combinations that are out there.
Yeah, thanks. I think that's right.
Daniel?
So I was under the impression, I mean, certainly Quinn, you would know better than me, but I was under the impression that at least for FIPS compliance, it's okay if one of the components of the hybrid construction is FIPS approved, right? So I was under the impression that if you have like MLChem plus X25519, it's still
Yes,
okay.
but I'm not talking about FIPS compliance. I'm talking about CNSA compliance.
Right,
Rather like the people that are looking for at those standards for inspiration of like what they are interested in, like what they want to see.
Yeah, so my question was going to be, does CNSA explicitly require both components to be approved?
No, they actually like are like this is NSA, so like they don't like hybrids, but then like we can say that yeah, there is no other option but to have that hybrid, and one part of that hybrid is the algorithm that you like, and that algorithm is verified, and if it doesn't verify, this whole signature will be rejected. So like you should be fine with that.
But do they accept MLChem as that component that they like, or no?
MLChem, I don't know. I think it's the same situation.
Scott Fleur, Cisco Systems. As far as CNSA 2.0, I believe PGP is irrelevant. There is no protection profile for PGP. If there was, it would be MLChem 1024. That's it. The requirement really is the German BSI, which says they need to hybrid. They want MLChem or Frodo, but MLChem, and they need Brainpool. That's it.
Sorry, Alicia, could I just get a clarification? So you're talking about signatures.
Yes.
And does that come into scope of CNSA too, or not? I just don't know.
I believe that's as far as CNSA, PGP is irrelevant because there's no protection profile for it. If if they did do it, it would be MLDSA only.
Could
But somebody clarify. Let's try and clarify.
So CNSA specifies the primitives that you should be using. It doesn't specify anything about the protocols that you are using them with. Yes, there are protection profiles that NSA also is publishing, but those are like separate things. And yeah, both signatures and key exchange are very much part of CNSA, both 1.0 and 2.0.
Yeah, I want to point out, I don't know, I'm not sure that OpenPGP is not used at all in the federal government or in the NSA compliant places. That's something I really I don't know, and so I think.
Well, I can with certainty say that they do use RHEL, and RHEL uses OpenPGP for signing RPMs. So for software protection, it is being used in practice.
Yeah. So that's I'm just So it's
Rebecca.
Hi, Rebecca Guthrie, NSA. I just want to clarify a few things. So we have the CNSA 2.0 algorithm suite, and that specifies which algorithms and parameters are approved for use in national security systems. Separately, we have a set of currently drafts that specify how to use those algorithms in different protocols. OpenPGP is not one of the working groups whose protocols we are including. And then on top of that, we have NIAP, and they are the authors of a set of protection profiles. And protection profiles sort of incorporate protocol requirements for specific types of IT devices. And to my knowledge, there's no use of any output of the OpenPGP working group in any of those documents. So as far as I'm aware, there's no need to have CNSA compliance in this document. Now, I don't know every single protection profile inside and out. There's about 50 of them. So it's possible that I could be proven wrong, but we do not have a profile draft for the PGP protocols. So I really don't think that this will be an issue. And like I said, I'm willing to be corrected, but as far as I'm aware, it's not a need here.
Yeah, so that's a good clarified information. But this draft is intended to help the working group for the other users, everywhere where they have P256 or P384 implementations available, so they wouldn't, and they want hybrid.
Sorry, Rebecca, I dropped you off the queue. If you do want to talk, then please do talk. I didn't want to kick you out.
Oh, thanks. Just one more comment. So I definitely recognize that there could be a need for FIPS compliance here, but just not for CNSA compliance specifically. Thanks.
Okay. Any other comments on this? So I presume the ask here is to do a call for adoption.
Yes.
Oh, you have a next slide. Okay,
yes.
So, hey, there you
go. Or yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think certainly the brain pool stuff and the NIST curve stuff has been known to be a thing that'll pop up, and it's popping up. So I guess at some point, unless you've touched DKG, we should do a call for adoption, and just make it clear that the set of suites or whatever we want to call them is a thing for the working group to consider post adoption. I don't think we need to do that, finalize that before adoption. Nobody seems to disagree with me. So at some point, DKG, does that make sense that we do a call for adoption for this in the next while and make it clear that the working group will then be afterwards can consider exactly which combinations to include?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I will say that this discussion makes me worry a little bit about the motivation for the draft. The one concrete requirement that I've heard so far has been from Stavros, who is indicating that there are, German government needs a concrete, they need hybrid and they need brain pool. The discussion around CNSA and around FIPS compliance seems significantly blurrier to me. And so if we could motivate the draft, I think that will help the working, explicitly motivate it. Like, what are the use cases that need it? I think that would help the working group to be able to decide what goes in and what goes out. And so I worry a little bit about not having the motivations clear before we adopt. I don't know if the proponents of the draft want to talk about that or speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, we should not forget that also Red Hat clearly voiced the need or the preference for the NIST curves. I mean, just because we got a statement from NSA now doesn't mean that their concerns are unmotivated. I don't see it like that. Because I think these compliance things, they tend to be quite complicated, and not always 100% clear. And if a vendor thinks that they achieve better compliance with the NSA suites, then I think that's a good reason as well. That you just didn't mention. So there was Stavros' comment, and there was the comment from Red Hat that were clearly voicing requirement for these suites.
Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, for the brain proofs curves, the compliance is important. But for the NIST options, the motivation is try to help the people who want to use hybrid. That's the main goal from the NIST perspective in this draft. But the both purposes from brain spool curve and the NIST curve in this option are really good, are very important in my view. So I think it would do a great service to help with this document and the working group to add advice or selections. Yeah, if when it became a group document, the group has all the rights to do all the right things with the current options in the draft.
Sure. Okay, so I think let me try summarize then. I think the reason for wanting the brain pool curves seems clear to people. There's a little bit more fuzziness about the reasons for the NIST curves being in those combinations, but some people at least are saying that they would like them. And if it was, if we could make clear on the list the reasons for the NIST curve combinations being attractive, or if other people step up and say, yes, I really want this cause, then that will help. And then we'll do a call for adoption, hopefully when this gets a little bit clearer, but in the not too distant future. Yeah. Okay. DKG is nodding. So that seems like a plan. So if we can clarify a bit, if we can defuzz the fuzziness a little bit, that would be good, and then do a call for adoption.
Okay. So what would you like us to initiate a discussion of on the mailing list, or would you like us to work on the draft and present it at the next meeting?
I don't see a reason to have to wait till the next meeting. So
okay. So then we would negotiate a discussion on the mailing list on this draft.
Sure, Andrew.
Hi, Andrew Holder, ACSC. For what it's worth, the Australian government would require the P256 curves if hybrids were the only option. So,
okay. So this whole regulation thing is so much fun.
I've marked the draft as a candidate for working group adoption in the data tracker. So please, those folks who have spoken up about their need for this kind of work, please do comment on the list. That will be really useful for us going forward. And Stephen and I will circle back in a little bit on list to commence an official call for adoption if folks do follow up on the list like that. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Quinn. So I think, Andrew, you're up. I presume you would like slide control?
Yes, please.
You should be getting it now.
Excellent.
And
thank you.
I'll kick off a little timer as well for you, and it's
sure. Yeah. So sorry. So, this slide deck is quite long, but a lot of it is a repeat of what I presented at the last IETF. So I will try and skip through those bits as quickly as possible. Apologies in advance. So I just thought I should speak a little bit about motivation, because that has come up in a couple of places already. The main motivation for doing an HKP draft at this point is that what we have currently, we don't have a single certificate lookup protocol that covers all of the use cases that we have. So the idea is that we should be able to serve multiple certificates per identity. So we should be able to look up a particular identity and get both V4 and V6 and potentially V6 PQC certificates back, and those should be usable and in some kind of preferred order. We also need to be able to validate user IDs when on submission, because key servers have historically had a massive spam problem, which has been solved in various ways, but none of them entirely satisfactory at the moment. And we also have some unofficial ways of doing domain-based lookup of certificates, where a domain owner would basically declare that these are the canonical certificates for users inside their domain. So there are some existing protocols for that, but none of them cover all of the use cases. So legacy HKP has the spam problem with open submission. The current iterations of WKD and keys.openpgp.org only officially support one certificate per user ID. So just to go into a little bit of detail about those, so KOO does it addresses the spam problem basically by triggering automated emails. Now, either you submit over HKP, which KOO does support, but that will trigger an email, and it's actually easy enough to trigger an email accidentally. Because I accidentally did it for my wife, who has a Proton Mail account, and she got the verification email. That was quite confusing. So it's not entirely satisfactory the way that that's currently done. KOO also supports its own protocol, which is VKS, and that's a 3-step verification protocol. You submit the certificate, you get a token back, you then submit the token to generate an email confirmation. You get the email confirmation back, and then you then you click on the link in that. So that's quite a complex process. HKP, on the other hand, it automatically supports multiple certificates. It always has. You make a request to HKP and you get back whatever matches. But the problem with that is spam. There is no order specified in what gets returned. There's no way to make sure that the correct or the plausible certificates float to the top of that list, and because most implementations cap the results in practice, there's no guarantee that the correct certificate will even be on the first page of the results. So the user ends up having to pick things at random before any verification is done, and this is unfriendly to the user. And finally, WKD. So it has a few problems technically, one of which is the form of the hashed user ID, which means we have to work around it by appending an unhashed form. It doesn't support multiple certificates. It does support multiple revocations, but the revocations in GNU-PG's default implementation, at least, the revocations are actually appended after the returned certificate, which makes them look like signatures over the wrong certificate, which GNU-PG can handle, but other implementations don't. And then there's the issue about the empty policy file, which is semantically meaningful, even though some hosting providers will serve it anyway. It has some advantages as well. It can be implemented using cheap static files, and it's binary first protocol, which I think most people would prefer these days. So what we actually want, or at least what we're trying to propose here, is to use HKP as a unified key server API that covers all of the above use cases. It will try not to bake in any assumptions about policies, about what the key servers actually will or will not accept. That can still be per key server, and there will be a minimal service that can be provided with optional extensions depending on the key server. We should be able to support the key discovery workflow, and we might even be able to implement a submission protocol over HKP, because HKP already does submission. So unlike the WKS server, which has its own submission protocol, we can reuse the existing HKP process. And it's API first, machine readable by default. So this one is basically what I presented at the last time, so I won't go over it. It's essentially, we have type safe getters. So instead of having the free text search that legacy HKP had, we have these very specific single purpose methods for each and we define various things that are already in use in practice. The new bits that are currently being worked on, now these are not in a current draft, so we discussed this in the keys.openpgp.org board, and there are a few changes pending, which aren't currently in any draft, which will support better the KOO use case. So in order to do this, I'm proposing a version submission API to match the version lookup API, and this will support pre-authenticated email verification, a canonical certificate ordering, and it will be, hopefully, it will be binary first rather than ASCII armor. So these are the existing methods in the current draft, which are lookups by fingerprint, by long key ID, by canonical user ID, which is where the key server is willing to be authoritative and stand over the mapping of the user ID to the certificate, which is required for the key discovery workflow, and also a prefix log for leak-free or minimal leak refresh that's based on some earlier work by Vincent Breitmoser and DKG. And will still support some of the legacy, but not all of the legacy HKP operations for backwards compatibility with older clients. The new stuff that is coming in, hopefully, will be a verifiable submission process where you can pass in verification tokens, where you can optionally also then declare that the certificate bundle that you pass in, which is a concatenated sequence of certificates, will be the canonical one that you want to be served over the discovery process, but it will also default to legacy behavior. This also means that we have an extra token get endpoint, which will let you generate an email, which then gets you a token that you can then use to authenticate your email on submission. I'm hoping that this will be able to handle multiple emails per request, although Daniel Hawkins has expressed some concerns about the practicality of that. And also, I'm hopeful that this can be forwards compatible with future proof methods, so that we don't just use the interactive email token generation process. So the idea behind the canonical certificate bundles is that you would supply a list of tokens, and these tokens would have been obtained over email, and then you would supply your certificate bundle, and the certificates in that bundle will have a selection of user IDs, and then for each user ID that has a valid token, it picks out the certificates from the submission that claim that user ID, and those form the canonical certificate bundle for that user ID. And this can then be used in authoritative lookup processes. So when you do the key discovery process, then you get the canonical bundle, which is what the key holder has declared is the order of certificates that they want. But if you do a more general search, if your key server supports a more general search, you can also use this to bubble the key holder's preferred certificates to the top. So even in traditional processes, you can still be reasonably or more confident that the top results are more meaningful. We can do that using an internal, basically a trust value. I don't want to call it trust because trust is an abused word, but I'm using confidence here as essentially the trust that the confidence that the key server has in the proofs that have been provided to it of whatever form that they are. And also something that's pending, again, not in the draft, is a switch from ASCII armor to binary first in the V2 API. Basically, ASCII armor is unnecessary over 8-bit CFI APIs, like basically anything that's done over HTTP. Legacy submissions actually do ASCII armor and then further URL encode the ASCII armor, which is just really messy to deal with. it does mean that if we are submitting multiple fields in the submission process, if we need to add tokens, then we may need to use something a little bit more structured, such as multi-part form data, or we could put the tokens into query parameters, but then that has length limitations. So this is still under discussion. And finally, since keys at openpgp.org and HockeyPuck already return a lot of JSON and support JSON internally, it's just as easy to go JSON for the responses. So the traditional colon separated responses from the legacy HKP would be supported in legacy mode, but going forwards, we should probably be using JSON. Because again, most implementations support that already, so we might as well make it official, and then we can use JSON parsers, and we don't have to worry about force compatibility of unknown fields in the JSON and so on. So HockeyPuck has a more fully featured set of JSON responses, so I'm currently using HockeyPuck as the basis of the document. But it will be extended to include KOO's requirements. So in addition, there's a lot of work going on here, but in addition to what I've already said, there are also some other open questions. One of which in particular, which keeps going backwards and forwards, is should we use served records or should we use well-known policy files to manage the key discovery? And while previously we were kind of leaning towards policy files, I think the mood has shifted. Certainly at the last OpenPGP email summit, the mood seemed to have shifted towards serve records. So that's something that will need to be discussed and decided on. Also, if we're going to do optional extensions, if we're going to have a core functionality plus optional extensions, then we need some way to detect these optional extensions. And one way that you could do that is like a pre-flight options or head request by the client. And then the emails that we send out with tokens should probably align with the structured mail working group. Structured mail uses JSON LD as its standard format. We could reasonably easily require that our verification emails fit into that paradigm. One other thing that I was thinking of was an out-of-band email authentication. At this rate, I think that will probably end up in a separate document, given how big this HKP document has already become. And another idea is that key servers could be able to do recursive lookups. This would be very nice for, say, providers like ProtonMail or Mailvelope or anybody who supplies both a client and a key server. The client could connect to its preferred key server and ask that key server to perform lookups on its behalf. And this really, really helps with the serve record issue, because the main thing that prevented us from doing serve records before was the inability of web-based clients to do arbitrary DNS lookups. If they could proxy this via a trusted key server via a recursive lookup, that problem goes away. DKG is in the queue. Have you anything to add?
I'm in the queue for after your when you finish. You're 2 slides away.
I'm very, very, very nearly done. Very nearly done. So the next steps, well, actually, there's a step 0 that's not on this slide, and that is produce another draft. The current draft is quite out of date. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff pending that I've just spoken about, but hopefully I'll be able to get a new draft out. Once that draft is out, I will possibly ask for working group adoption. I'm not going to ask for it right now because, again, the draft that you all have is quite out of date, so there's no point talking about it right now. The good news is that HockeyPuck has been funded to implement this, and the KOO board has recently made a decision to support HKP v2 going forward. So we will have 2 server-side implementations, hopefully within the near future. We don't have any clients currently signed up to this. If client implementers would like to state an opinion about this, please let us know. And this is just the further information slide. It's the usual. So please look up the draft, which I'll announce the new draft on the mailing list when it's available, and the repo is there for you as well. So thanks very much. DKG.
Thank you. I realize we're pretty short on time. There's a lot of material in here, and I'm a little terrified about how. No, don't apologize. I'm just a little terrified about how big it is. So I get that we want one coherent blob that is HKP v2, and I'm just wondering whether you're thinking about how to prune out the pieces so that we can have something that's sort of bite-sized for the working group to consider. I mean, HKP2 may not itself be bite-sized, but let's not make it the entire elephant. I think it might be useful.
So currently, these slides look big because there are a lot of changes pending, but they won't make the current draft that much bigger. Like, if anything, I do want to clean up some of the more legacy stuff, because the original document that Daphne worked on, back in 2003 or whenever it was originally, was entirely about the human readable interface with a machine readable extension, whereas we want to flip this. So we want it to be a machine readable interface with a potentially a legacy human readable bit onto the end. That's the general idea. So the focus will probably shift, but I don't expect it to become an enormous, unmanageable draft. I don't expect it to get that much bigger. Stephen.
Yeah, just very quickly, can you go back one slide?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so just for openness, I also get some funding from NGI as part of the consortium, but I'm not involved in any of the decisions about who gets funding. So I, just to be clear about that. And then secondly, I think, can you just describe briefly who the KOO board are, just again for the record?
So the keys.openpgp.org board are currently myself, Daniel Huggins, and Heiko Schaefer.
And I think Daniel provided a pointer in the chat, so people can just so people can understand where the requirements are coming from. Mm-hmm. Great. And then Daniel?
Yes. So first of all, thanks for doing this work. Obviously, I agree with the motivation, and I think, yeah, it's something that we need. I do also somewhat worry about like the complexity of the API that we're proposing and gonna have to implement. And I mean, as a random example, I mean, JSON is obviously not a big deal or hard to use, but I think, yeah, as we discussed before, if we could just submit binary keys, retrieve binary keys, and that's it, and we throw everything else out, I think it could be a nice opportunity to kind of simplify HKP as well, rather than like drag around all the sort of legacy functionality that it has. I mean, if there's a concrete need for it, then we should discuss that, I think. But yeah, also for the recursive lookups, just because you mentioned ProtonMail, I don't want to like throw the proposal under the bus, but I'm not sure we really need that from Proton side. We have our own server that we tunnel lookups through from our clients. I'm not sure we need all that complexity. But yeah, I mean, we can discuss more if someone else needs that, obviously.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, one of the advantages of controlling both the server and the client side is you don't have to, you use a common protocol. It can just be a hook in your API, and that's it. And we don't need to specify it here. Yeah. I mentioned it more because the concept is a way around the serve record problem, but we don't need to specify it in this document.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. So I think the summary then is for the notes is that Andrew and other folks working this plan another revision that may be non-trivial, and then it'll be a little bit after that when they ask for a call for adoption.
Yeah.
Thank you. And next is Aaron. Let me find the right slides. Forwarding. Is that the right slides? You still get the clicker.
Oh, cool.
So this is 10 minutes, yeah?
Yeah, I'll try to stick it within 10 minutes. So today I wanted to present a brief update on forwarding. There is already a personal draft expired too that tackles the RFC 4880 state. So V4 keys, V3 PASK, and V1 SIPD. And it's only compatible with Curve 25519 legacy. It is transparent and multi-hop. This means that in this case, Bob can set up a forwarding to charts, automatic forwarding to charts, and to Daniel, and as well Daniel can do the same to Frank after their own transformation. Another thing, it is the forwarder is the one that generates the forward D key containing the KDF material for the forward D. So Bob is the forwarder and Charles is the forward D. And effectively what happens is that, let's say the clicker, okay. So the KDF works in this way as of now in an OpenPGP. We have a ciphertext, we use the secret key. Does this, oh, cool. We take the recipient's secret key and we use it for the decryption process, and then the public key gets stuffed into the key derivation function to obtain the key encryption key. With forwarding, we have a proxy transformation in the middle, so we can use the forward D key to decrypt, but then we still need the forward public key into the KDF because the KDF is kind of symmetric, one-way operation. And the way we do it is by including this into the forward D secret key. So we say, please don't use the normal KDF parameters, but replace them with this instead. We do deploy this at Proton, and we use it for both internal forwarding and groups. So it works only for Proton to Proton or external PGP encrypted to Proton messages. So we do not support sending these messages externally to other providers because the special capability is, as we see here, this is the part that is in the draft that is non-standard, let's say non-standard, that at least no one else implements. But we do, and we have approximately 60,000 messages a day that gets forwarded. I have put in nice Grafana graphs because everyone loves them. And you can see this is last week. Every day we average approximately 1 message a second during peak hours, 1.5 messages a second during peak hours for that gets transformed. Now, this is the issue. When we did CAPD v2 and X25519, the new algorithm, as well as X448 and PQC, we have the ephemeral X25519 public key into the KDF. What does this mean? We need to put the ciphertext, the original OE4 transformation into the KDF. This cannot be embedded into the key because every message is different, obviously. And so we need a way to transfer this information even after transformation of the proxy. So we need both the transformed ciphertext and the original ciphertext into the PKSK. So the proposal I came up with is a new packet, the FKESK, because everyone loves a new acronym. And so we have the forwarding key encrypted key packet that includes the same information as a PKSK, but on top of it, both the original ciphertext and the transformed ciphertext. There are two open questions here. Whether, first of all, we should have in the algorithm new code points for the forwarded algorithm, so kind of x25519 and forwarded x25519 with a new code point, and whether the forwarded public key material, instead of being in the key, it should be put into the FKSK. This would give a few advantages and make the protocol slightly more robust to when you have a different hierarchy of transformations rather than just a simple forwarding. It's very useful for subgroups, this one, actually. And, oh, sorry, no, I don't want to spoil. So these are the two first questions, and these are meant to work onto X2509 and X448 as it is specified in V6 and SIPD V2. But there is an additional problem with PQC. You have a PQC ciphertext. Now, there is a paper that we found published late last year and updated early this year about CCA2 secure proxy re-encryption on Kyber. That actually fits the model. So it does the whole forwarding. The only trade-off is the fact that it's only single hop. As it is specified in the paper, there is a possibility of additional work to make it also multi-hop, but it hasn't been pursued yet. And especially this paper has no implementations and no review. So effectively is not an archive, but is a, give me a second, is an e-print on EACR paper that effectively no one has really publicly reviewed or published at a conference. I do have an interest in implementing this, but I am not sure I can do this alone. So, I mean, this is not yet adopted for the working group. I will work on it most likely, but then it's going to be an open problem. And so basically, this is the state of the art. We have RSC 4880 forwarding and deployed and working. We'll need some changes for the new standard, but they seem to be fairly compact and limited to a new packet. And instead for PQC, we'll need more work. We're still at the academic phase. We'll maybe get there. If anyone has some opinions about the packets or PQC, please come to the mic.
Okay, so I guess this is something that'll evolve, and we'll probably hear about again.
Yeah, this is not. I mean, it's not yet adopted, but it was in the not the adoption call, but the rechartering call back then, and
yes,
it was quite high up. But I also believe that making sure that we can deploy V6 is more important than this.
Yeah. Okay, Andrew.
Hi, Aaron. Yeah, I was quite interested previously in an earlier iteration of this. Is the draft? Do you have an updated draft containing the FKESK packet description yet?
Containing the? Sorry.
So
No. The FKSK is an idea that was just thrown between DKG, Daniel, Huygens, and I.
Okay.
But it's not yet described. I just want to gather some early feedback on it. But the idea is simply a modified PKSK with the additional stuff that we need to make forwarding happen.
Okay, sure. I will follow this with interest. Thanks.
Stavros?
Yeah, Stavros, I would be willing to maybe read the paper and support with the cryptography of its sound.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so I guess the work will continue, and it'll pop back up to us at some point in the future. Okay. And next is Andrew again, yeah?
Hi. Yes.
media
Sorry
types.
for, as if I haven't talked enough. So I threw this in as a purely if time permits thing. So I will run through it as quickly as I possibly can. Oh, thanks. Okay, so this came out of thinking about HKP APIs, and in particular thinking about how do we upload keys and how do we know whether something is supposed to be ASCII armored or not. So the current media types that are defined in RFC 3156, and the only ones that I can see that are currently in the media types registry are these ones: application PGP keys, PGP signature, and PGP encrypted. This all predates even the conversion of MIME types to media types, which was in 4288, I believe. These are very restricted, and they're only really defined in the context of RC 3156, which is PGP MIME. They have been used in other places, like APIs, for example, but inconsistently. So, for example, if you look at, I think it's the current WKD spec, I think it just says that certificates should be served as application octet stream, which fine, they are, but it's not particularly descriptive. So they don't cover, they only cover these passing signatures and certificates, transferable public keys. There's no types defined for messages or for secret keys, or for that matter, for any binary formats. They are very specifically ASCII armored media types. And which kind of brought me thinking, what actually is ASCII armor? Because how do we declare that something is or is not ASCII armor? What is it? Is ASCII armor a type, or is it an encoding? It's kind of a little bit of both. So you can't losslessly round trip things through ASCII armor, because there are other things like checksums and headers, and comments, and so on that are in ASCII armor that aren't in the binary blob that is encoded. And also, it's only defined in the context of OpenPGP, so it's not a generic encoding like base 64 or quoted printable would be. But on the other hand, it is effectively semantically equivalent to the binary format. It's just base 64 with a couple of extra bits on it. So where does this fall in kind of like the MIME hierarchy? If we want to represent this as a MIME type or as a media type, where do we start? And really, ASCII armor is actually kind of like MIME rather than anything else. It has delimiters, it has a content type, it has metadata headers, and then it has an encoding of your binary data. So it doesn't really fit into the MIME paradigm, because it's almost like a competing paradigm to MIME. So my argument is, do we even need to need ASCII armor at all in 2025 outside of PGP MIME, where it is very specifically required by the format and where it is necessary because of 7-bit safety in SMTP? Otherwise, why do we have it at all? In a lot of contexts, we can just use the binary. We can use a content encoding base 64 on the media type and just send it as a binary file. And if you have a constrained context, say for example in the header, we can just use the raw base 64, and which is what we're currently doing in the unobtrusive signatures draft, for example. We're using base 64 and it's in a header, but there's none of the ASCII armor decoration around it. And also the other use of ASCII armor was for people to actually cut and paste certificates in and out of web forms using the clipboard. Is that something that we should be supporting or encouraging in 2025? No. So there is a concrete need for new media types, because we want to be able to specifically say that something is not ASCII armored. But how do we do that? And this is a big open question, and this is why I brought it here, because I don't have a good answer. one proposal is we just define a whole set of completely new types, deprecate the old ones, say they're fine for PGP MIME, but beyond PGP MIME, we actually should use these new media types, which we will define from scratch according to modern principles. Or we could add parameters to the existing types. So we could have application PGP keys with a parameter of encoding equals binary to specifically say that this is not ASCII armored. It feels a bit backwards because normally when you put an encoding or an option onto something, it means that there has been further encoding rather than there has not been any encoding. So it doesn't really fit either. Or we could do something like a suffix, for example. So PGP keys plus binary. And that would be similar to, say, PGP keys plus JSON or PGP keys plus CBOR, or there are quite a few generic suffixes that are already defined. But again, none of those fit the ASCII template. And of course, again, we would be putting a suffix on to say that something is not used rather than saying that something is new. And we still don't have any way of representing messages or secret key material or whatever. So I just wanted to throw this open for anybody who wants to comment. I threw one particular proposal into a draft. This is not an internet draft. It is not published in the data tracker. It might never be published in the data tracker. But I'm really just looking for ideas here. Is there a clean way of doing this that doesn't involve just deprecating everything we currently have and starting again from scratch? Because it all feels very suboptimal. All of the options that I've considered anyway feel suboptimal. Alexei.
Hello. Yeah, I cannot really tell you about, deprecating existing types versus defining new ones. This is more for you guys because I'm not sure about backward compatibility stuff. In regards to plus binary, this will require creation of a new suffix.
Mm-hmm.
And suffix goes through a special IANA procedure and will be reviewed in a MediaMan, well, at least on the MediaMan mailing list. I probably wouldn't go that way. Using plus JSON plus CBOR is fine. They are already registered suffixes. New parameters on existing media types also seems fine, like extensibility point. Yeah, so sorry. So kind of like a list of assorted quick comments on what you presented, but I hope this is helpful.
No, I think it is. Thanks. I mean, I think you've confirmed my instinct against using a plus binary suffix because it feels
well.
Too much.
It's also kind of weird in a sense of typically it's reserved for like general formats. Then there are multiple instantiations of, right, for different purposes. And what you are actually saying is, well, binary is not a format. It's just like it's binary. So
yeah,
trying to justify this would be, I think, a little bit of a struggle.
Yeah,
just
fair enough.
Right.
No, thank you for that.
Great.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if you saw the chat, but Alexei is one of the designated experts for the media types registry. So just continuing that chat as you kind of figure out what might be attractive would be useful, I think.
Sure.
And I'm sure a bunch of people know, but there's a long history of people making slightly wrong decisions at media types.
Yeah, and I would put the original specification of those application PGP keys and application PGP signature kind of in the slightly wrong decision personally, and we're kind of trying to walk it back here to some extent. So yeah, it would be nice to do this properly. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think the action that is going to, Andrews, think some more, chat with Alexei, maybe come back with a proposal at some point. Okay, cool. So I think we're at any other business part of the agenda. DKG, do you have the URL for that menu we arrived at handy? I don't.
You mean the charter?
Yeah. So remember we did the big menu of options and who liked to do what next and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that URL in my head or handy.
I don't have the URL in my head or handy either.
Right.
Sorry.
So I think on the list, Daniel Huygens asked, what should we do next, or where are we going from here? I don't think we want to decide that today, but previously when we were rechartering, we did an exercise of polling who likes which kind of things from a big menu of options, and then we had some prioritizations, and we went through a big long process. And so I think at some point, probably, I guess maybe when the PQC draft is a little bit further along, when we're just happy that that's kind of getting over the upcoming hurdles of IETF last call and ISG review and so on, we might want to redo some of that. And that might mean just going back and looking at our old menu of options and seeing is it still good? Are we just kind of chunking through the higher priority items and ready to move on to the lower priority ones, or do people have new things to do? And so that's a thing that we'll probably want to do in the working group at some point. I think, again, DKG, just jump in if you have other thoughts or better ones. It seems like maybe when the PQC draft is a little bit further along is the time to kind of sit back and think, what do we want to do now? Does that make sense, Daniel? DKG?
Yes, I think it does. Sorry, I was just trying to find the poll, and I'm not finding it either.
Yeah, it's somewhere on GitLab or somewhere, is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. There is a bunch of work that's happening, right? I mean, Andrew has probably more documents than he needs to have that are underway, but we have work from Proton that Aaron's doing. I mean, all of the main presentations in this session were not currently adopted. And then I have a backlog of OpenPGP related drafts that I'm interested in too. So yeah, we need to think about as the PQC gets off the, gets headed out the door, what we want to take on next to keep the momentum.
And just, I don't know if everybody was around at the time, so I guess there was an element of kind of controversy about our previous recharter. And maybe we've got to the point where we're just chunking through work happily enough that we don't need to do any special things and we could just kind of recharter in a more normal way. Or maybe we should just go back to that kind of prioritized list. So that's a thing for people to think about. And probably, I guess, in the time frame of the next IETF meeting, we might want to start deciding what would we like to kind of take in as new work. Who thinks what is priority, who thinks what's terrible and we should never go near, etc., etc. I don't know, Paul, do you have any thoughts on that? Or esteemed AD?
Paul, no, not really. I think the group's doing a nice job of trying to figure out what's important, what to do first, and as long as there's actual real work to be done, you should be doing the real work.
Sure.
Daniel found the list for the voting, the Condorcet poll. It's listed in the chat there. Thank you, Daniel.
Oh, great.
So, yeah, folks want to take a look at that and think about what might make sense. How you feel today, which may be different from how you felt when we ran that poll in the first place.
Yeah, so we went through a very involved process to try and ameliorate controversies we had at the time. So maybe we could, I don't think we need to go through all of that again. I think people are working happily enough that we don't. But we certainly should look through how are we doing with those prioritized items. Has the priorities changed over the last year or whatever it was? Okay, so any thoughts on that people want to bring up now that we have a few minutes on new work items or ways of talking about new work items? We have a few minutes for it. Jumping in the queue would be the thing to do. And if you don't, that's okay, because we will come back to this, I guess, probably in the time frame of the next IETF meeting. There or thereabouts.
Yep. So I just want to mention that, you know, we really do have to think about how we're going to test interoperability for the two drafts that are currently adopted, as mentioned earlier in this deck. So I hope that folks in the working group will weigh in on how we're going to actually test it, both the replacement key and the persistent symmetric keys, because we want to be able to see that there is effective interoperable work there. So please think about weighing in on those places, because that's what we're going to need to do to get these pieces done. Daniel?
Yeah, just to expand on that, the next item on the poll results is SOP, and I think it would make sense to try to adopt that also, so that we can, you know, I mean, we've already been doing that, but I mean, we should discuss in the working group, well, you know, how to move that draft forward, right?
Yeah, so far SOP has just been a live draft that I've been maintaining in collaboration with many of you in the group. So it has not been formally adopted by the working group. I wouldn't mind it being formally adopted, but I don't know that we also need to aim for it to be fully published. Like, it's been evolving as the ecosystem evolves,
Right.
and I don't know whether it needs to be an RFC or not. But yeah, I would love more feedback on that too. Anybody who wants to weigh in would be welcome. I have been trying to play a little bit of a gatekeeper on it, mainly to keep the complexity down. I think OpenPGP has a history of more complexity than we need, and the goal here is to sort of make it surface the good bits and not get too deep into the wire format. But if the working group wants to weigh in and pick it up, I also wouldn't object to that.
Okay, any other thoughts on work items and so on? Not seeing anybody jumping up or in the queue. In that case, any other business? Nothing. And yep, Daniel.
Yeah, I will just say very briefly again. I mean, I already sent it to the list, as I said, but yeah, there are some open questions about how to do persistence metric keys. There are some options discussed there. One is to keep it as is in the draft, to define new algorithms. One is to define new packets instead. Other is to do a mix. Yeah, if you haven't already, please take a look at the discussion on the list and I guess weigh in to say which option you like most, and then I can, move the draft forward with that.
Great, thanks. Okay, and unless DKG, you have anything else? I think we can set people free. Great, okay. Thank you. Thanks for all the work, and we'll talk to you on the list.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, and thanks to our note takers as well. Thank you.